Well, my friends, it's finally happened. We get an actual legitimate release from Paramount of a Strange New Worlds trailer that does feature those long sought after Lower Decks crossover images. We actually get some dialogue here as well as some other stuff. I'm going to try something new here. I'm not sure how well it's going to work or if YouTube/Paramount is actually going to allow this. Not sure how it's going to work, so bear with me. Also, my chair is making a fantastically horrible squeaking noise, so if you hear that in the background, I don't feel like dragging out another chair right now, so let's crack into this. So we get a pretty significant scene of what appears to be most of our main cast in a shuttle here, and it's crashing or seemingly crashing, and it looks like Ortega is getting her shot at the glory here, doing some sort of I don't know if it's really a slingshot maneuver, but she's basically going in for a controlled crash, and then at the very last minute pulls up. She says she did this a lot during the war. Hopefully we get some more backstory on her, and specifically her relationship with Pike here, because as I've said ad nauseum, she really didn't get much to do in season 1, and she was one of the new characters, meaning we have no legacy attachment to her, at least as far as we know, so she is desperately needing that backstory so that we can actually fill out these new characters. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about these landing party uniform here, but it doesn't really look covert because they actually have the colors on them. I don't really know what these would be aside from maybe a harsh environment landing suit, something like that, and that's really where we break into the main point of the trailer. I do like the fact that we get more Ortegas, but I don't know how this fits into the actual show itself. Then this is the next part I wanted to talk about here. I don't want to play too much because, again, I don't want to get in trouble, although I probably will. This looks like a nice small town on Earth, but I do not believe for 1 second this is Earth unless it's an altered timeline of Earth. So is this going to be a colony that was founded by descendants of Earth people, Earthlings, Terrans, humans, whatever you want to call it, and they just happen to develop their society to look like Earth? Or is this going to be one of those patented Star Trek parallel evolution type episodes? I kind of hope we might harken back to that with a little bit more grit and a little bit more explanation, because while it was done fairly effectively in the original series several times, it was very rarely actually given a real world explanation, and when it was mostly like, oh, somebody left something behind, and the culture on this planet just so happened to develop exactly like yours because of using that one example as a way to develop themselves. Other times it was just shown, you know what, this planet just happened to develop Rome in and of itself, and there's no explanation for that whatsoever. So this looks like Earth, like I said, but I don't believe it is Earth because none of the characters in this scene, aside from our Starfleet characters, seem to be wearing humanistic clothing that would be appropriate to this time period. So unless this is an alternate universe, I don't believe these people are 1950s Earth beings, even though it looks like an Earth setting. Now we've got this other character here who I'm going to guess is part of Kirk's ship, Kirk's command, although I can't be positive about that, but I'm going to guess this is going to be somebody on Kirk's ship, whether or not that's the captain that he's serving under or the first officer or whoever. This is probably someone that's already been referenced in the media and we already know who it is, but I don't know off the top of my head, so just going to go ahead and assume that's somebody new. This is a kind of interesting looking ship here, and I don't know off the top of my head. I'm going to go ahead and assume this is going to be an alien invasion type storyline, particularly similar to those kind of early sci-fi movies we had where an idyllic town or an idyllic vicinity in Earth was being invaded by the creepy, super intelligent aliens, with the twist that Starfleet is intervening here. So maybe this is going to be the first contact invasion of an Earth-like species, but they have the benefit of Starfleet being able to either observe or intervene to maybe broker a truce, broker a peace, or at least stop it from being a horrible, horrible event. Hell, this might be first contact similar to how the Vulcans contacted us, except it's a hostile species as opposed to a peaceful species like the Vulcans were. We get this shot here on the bridge. Obviously not much to really glean from that aside from the cool shots in the background. And we have some more flying from Ortegas. We've seen that before. Now this is Kirk and La'an watching what appears to be an explosion probably on that planet that was supposed to be Earth. Whether or not this is the Earth of the present and this is why they have to slingshot back into the past, or if they actually don't go back into the past, I'm not sure. However, it is interesting to note they're not wearing their normal uniforms. They were wearing their Starfleet uniforms when we saw them in the previous trailers, so this is absolutely a different scene. So is this them trying to blend in and go undercover and look as if they are of the time period, or is this like some kind of stealth suit? It almost looks like Kirk here is wearing a hoodie. Maybe they're just trying to give us 332 different types of clothing so that cosplayers have a heart attack and die before they can actually buy this stuff. We have a little fight scene. I think this is the planet that some people were speculating was the Klingon hideout that Pike was looking at through the telescope. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think it might be maybe another planet of the week that we haven't met before, and I sure hope it's a planet we haven't met before because this is Strange New Worlds. We're supposed to be visiting things yet unseen in the Star Trek canon, the Star Trek history. So to keep revisiting or pre-visiting planets we already know about kind of defeats the purpose of Strange New Worlds. Again, a little off topic there, but it seems like that's something they're a bit missing in this show. But when you only have 10 episodes in a season, you kind of have to balance the new and the old and the recurring. So hopefully we at least get 4 or 5 new worlds in this season and then a couple revisits of things we've seen before. We have Pike here in another undercover looking thing. I'm going to skip ahead because there's some things here that I don't really think need to be touched on. They're just beauty shots. This is kind of cool. I'm not sure what this is going to be. Is this going to be an alternate reality? Not really an alternate reality, an altered state of consciousness. Is this going to be inside some sort of comet, similar to what the Orville showed us in season 3 there? Inside a comet, there was this really, really intense alternate kind of world because it doesn't really conform to the type of planetoids or the planets or the moons that we have access to. It's a completely artificial and different type of environment simply because of where it exists. Or is this maybe a representation of being in subspace? Is this the reality between worlds? I don't know, but it kind of looks cool, and this is the type of thing you couldn't see in prior Star Trek really because of effects. So when they use this stuff in modern Trek, that's when I like the CG element. When they're just adding things to add things, that's where I have a little bit of issue with it. We also see here a little bit of Mbenga, and we see the classic scene we've seen in all the trailers and shots before, where Spock and the Klingons are having this meeting, and you can see in his cup here, this definitely appears to be blood wine or something similar. I have to imagine it is blood wine. Spock seems a bit out of his element, but he's definitely willing to go with it. I think this is going to be more of a fun episode than we were originally imagining, and we also see there is another type of alien here, not necessarily just the Klingons, and in the background there, these Klingons do have a bit of a differing appearance from the one we saw. They look a little less fake and a little less plasticky. Obviously, they're not in sharp focus, so that could be changing in the episode, but I like it. It showcases a differing range of people. They're not all looking 100% identical. We get some more scenes here. The first speaking line from Carol Kane's new engineer. I'm not entirely sure what she's wearing. That is that similar to the things we saw on the Remembrance Day, or is this indicating that she's an engineer, or what is she wearing there? Anyone know that? You want to pitch in down below? Let me know. I feel like I'm rambling a lot here, but there's not a ton of new stuff to say. Obviously, we get a nice ship destruction here. Don't believe that is the Enterprise for a minute. And now we get to a couple of the things that are giving me First of all, it looks like they toned down Spock's sideburns a little bit. They're still a bit long, so they're not all the way down his face. So they did listen to that one point of criticism. But it appears that the on-again, off-again sexual tension between Chapel and Spock is eventually going to come to some sort of conclusion or resolution here. Obviously, we know in the original series that doesn't necessarily go away 100%. So how this is going to impact his relationship with T'Pring, and is this a voluntary situation, or are we once again dealing with a mind virus or something that's raising the sexual hormones of our characters and making them perform in ways they wouldn't normally, removing their inhibitions? I don't know, but that scene in and of itself, I wouldn't be too opposed to. Obviously, this is a bit out of character for Spock as well, so maybe there's something that's interacting with his emotions here. A virus, like I said, telepathic influence. Maybe, just maybe, throwing this wild speculation out there, the ship has been taken over by some sort of alien gas forms or something like we've seen before. I don't know. But we have a June 15th date. We obviously already knew that. And we have another scene coming up. I don't want to play too much at a time, but I do want to get to this scene. Okay, this is why I feel a little bit icky about the fact that we saw Spock and Nurse Chapel kissing, and now we see Pike, and forgive me, I'm forgetting her name. I believe this is the captain that we saw him hook up with a couple of times in the show already. I don't know. It seems a bit much. There's a lot of romance going on, a lot of kissing, a lot of sexual relationships potentially going on in the show, which isn't 100% a bad thing. It's obviously good for our characters to have relationships with other characters, but as I said before, this is a 10-episode season. We don't have 24 episodes to play with like we used to in the past of Star Trek. We have to get in, tell that story, tell that conclusion, and get out. So to spend a lot of time dealing with characters and burgeoning romance, that's a lot of time that we could be spent more effectively, in my opinion, on actual exploration. Again, if this is a quick scene, a 2 or 3 minute scene in an otherwise brilliant episode, it's not going to mean too much, but the fact that they put 2 such scenes in the trailer here leads me to believe we might be spending a little bit too much time on interpersonal romance relationships and less time on the exploring of strange new worlds, which I've said ad nauseum is the crux and the main point of this show to begin with. We also get some nice beaming. Again, another cool away team jacket. This is stealthy, perhaps. I actually like this. It looks like she's wearing it over her typical white jumpsuit. I don't know. I don't know, for whatever reason, I really like this look here. It's adding on to the normal Nurse Chapel look, but she looks a bit more polished and a bit more professional here. What else do we have in this trailer that we really need to talk about? Okay, Uhura and Kirk on what appears to be the 10 forward equivalent of what ship? I'm not certain. So does this mean we're going to get Kirk on board the Enterprise at some point, or is Uhura going to join him on his ship, whatever they make that out to be here in this season? I don't know if they're going to go with a Farragut, if they're going to go with something else, but it does seem they are on the same ship together, so they're not just taking part in off-world exploration. Is this the same episode with the time travel? I don't know. I'm speculating wildly on things that we really have no clue of based on the trailer. And here's the money shot everyone's waiting for. We get Boimler and Mariner in all their glory. They actually speak. I'm not going to play any of the audio. Obviously, you've noticed that already. So here they are in all their glory. Yes, Boimler has the purple hair, although it is a bit hard to see in this scene. It is dyed purple, but it's not a wacky, over-the-top kind of updo. And speaking of the updo, Pike's hair seems toned down a little bit. It's not quite as high as it was at the end of season 1, and I hope they bring that back. I hope they build that up and make it a tall-ass wall that you can barely see because the top of the screen's cutting it off. It's nice to see them in live action, with the same quirks and the same eccentricities, just toned down slightly. Just little quick shots of probably various episodes. That's cool. I believe that's probably going to have something to do with that weird, wacky kaleidoscope effect we saw earlier. Is this transitioning between realities? Is this transitioning through time? Is this some sort of weird subspace weapon? I could see all 3 of those things happening, but it kind of looks like it's a transition effect. I certainly hope this isn't a mirror universe traversal, but this could be a traversal through different parallel intersecting universes or something like that. Or it could just be a cool effect shot that just looks fun and looks interesting and isn't something we've really seen before. Strange New Worlds, as I said, streaming the June 15th. The June 15th, I don't know why I said it that way. And here we have the full scene, Crave released, with a little bit more added to it. So Spock says live long and prosper here. Adding on to the end, Mr. Boimler. And Boimler here with his little bumbling, stumbling kind of persona can't really say it back, and he fumbles through his words as he's beaming out. So it does appear this is going to be an actual real-world interaction between the Lower Decks characters and the Enterprise under Pike characters, especially Spock, whether or not the rest of the crew are there also. I'm wondering if there might be a swap going on. Perhaps Boimler and Mariner replaced two crew members on the Enterprise, and that's why we see a couple of our characters in what appears to be a different timeline, because there was a 2-for-2 swap. Just came up with that right now. Don't know if that's going to be the case, but it's nice to see Boimler and Mariner actually get their speaking lines here, and I'm very, very, very curious how they're actually going to go about this this transfer or this crossover or whatever. Okay, so that was the trailer. Not too much can be gleaned from it, but I have to say there were some things that gave me a bit of pause, some cool effects, and it does look like we're going to be dealing with Phenomenon a bit more in this season than we did before. We saw a little Gorn in there, we saw some Klingons in there, but there were some wonky effects. Alternate realities, alternate dimensions, alternate ways of thinking, our characters acting potentially out of character, and of course, some things that indicate either time travel or parallel evolutions of worlds. So they really need to hit it out of that gate with that first episode, and I can't wait to see it. I do have a few concerns, but I have to say, I'm not the type of person to go into things hoping for the worst. So I'm going to say, yes, I have my concerns, especially about the kissy love stuff. But if they can overcome that, if they can play things a little bit more exploratory than they did in season 1 and a little bit more Strange New Worlds, as I said, then I 100% think this is going to be potentially an even better season than season 1. What are all your thoughts? What do you think of this trailer? Are you excited for this, or have you kind of given up on the newer Star Trek stuff and not really come back to it? Leave all your thoughts down below, and I'll definitely be seeing you when the series comes out. Take care, and like always, computer, end program.